In what ways do you think you've kind of grown in terms of basketball as well as leader of this team?
As the season went on, I felt like my body started feeling better and better. I feel like I was getting my legs under me more. Obviously, I had, like my knee was kind of fluctuating. I had, like I said, good days and bad days, but I feel like my body started really feeling better and better. And my game, I was turning the ball over like crazy to start the year. I feel like I settled that down a little bit. My shot, I feel like, I got it back to a good point. But all of these things, man, it's just about consistency and you're only as good as your last game. So I'm excited about this summer. I really am. I'm excited about being able to get back in the gym and sharpening all my tools.
What up, though, people? Welcome back to Wake Up Woodward. It's been an electric show, man. The emotions have been high. They've been low. It's been a little bit of rage. The Tigers were the kumbaya moment, kind of sitting right in the middle of this entire show. And we're definitely going to get into some Lions as well in the next segment. But we got to recap what went down at the exit interviews for the Detroit Pistons as well. And there were some interesting things. And after the exit interviews, we all got, an email kind of laying out what the future of this front office is going to look like.
Can't wait to hear this.
There's some good, there's some bad. It's a little bit of Swiss insurance type here. but hey, look, man. Thank you guys for supporting. Going ahead and smash that like button. It's been awesome engaging with you guys, whether we agree, whether we disagree. The conversation, the debate, the maturity, the jokes, all of it, man. The phone call. Shout out to Chase. Shout out to Eduardo as well. It's all been dope. And those phone lines are open, 313-552-6322. Definitely make sure you guys call in. But your boy was in the building for it's been a week of press conferences for us. I had to leave the show right at the end of it and get down, was it Monday or Tuesday? Monday for the exit interviews. I know, Broder, you left the show early yesterday to get down to Allen Park for the Detroit Lions. We're trying to work, man. We're trying to bring you guys kind of that A1 stuff. And Rod Beard will be on with us next week to kind of give us his breakdown of this stuff as well. But there was a lot of interesting things said at this exit interview.
And was that was an exit interview? Like, when you say exit interview, like, that's an exit interview with the media, not his exit interview with the team, with the coach, team. And then so this
and this one was interesting. I've been to a couple of these, right? Troy Weaver and the coach, they've been at these things. This was the one where it was just players.
Okay,
that's
cool.
it. And it wasn't all the players that we saw play. Some of the guys' names that you guys might not know or be like, where'd this guy come from? Like, we did not speak to Chimizi Matu. We did not speak to Malachi Flynn. It was realistically the players that you consider might be here for the long term or might be involved maybe around the free agency or the draft time in some type of a big trade. So we heard from him. We got to talk to and ask questions to Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, Isaiah Stewart, and more. Asar Thompson got some of that audio as well. But the most important figure in all of this thing that we got to talk to is Cade Cunningham, because he's a guy that has his contract extension. He's eligible this offseason to sign a contract extension in Detroit. And one of the things that I've seen from a lot of different fans was, is he even going to want to be here? And he was asked, do you want to be here? And I know you knocked on wood during your read. Cade Cunningham knocked on wood during his read. He said, of course I've been thinking about it, man. And by the sounds of it, he will be a Detroit Pistons. I say Detroit Lion. He will be a Detroit Piston after signing this next contract, whether it's this offseason or whether it's the offseason next year. This is, I believe, where he wants to be. This is something that I know he wants to figure out. He knocked on wood and he said, you know what? I take these things day by day, though. I don't want to get ahead of myself. I'm still trying to keep myself and my mindset in the framework of we gotta perform better. We have to achieve better. I gotta have health. It was actually one of the more mature answers that I think we could have gotten from a player who was asked about his contract situation, despite kind of the losing that we've seen with him as the former #1 overall pick. And the other question, one of the ones I got to ask him was, how do you think you've grown as a basketball player and as a leader? And it was cool because all of the players that stepped to the podium, and the players, I'm not gonna, as it relates to this blame, I asked you earlier, what do we put on the coaches, the players, and the front office, as it relates to the Red Wings? With the Pistons, listen, there's blame to go all the way around. I do believe that the front office has failed them tremendously. They are a young team, and all of them continue to step to the table and talk about this is kind of one of their first situations in the NBA where they're looking around and everybody's the same age as them and they're still looking. Is that an excuse? Nah. I do believe it is a reason, but I'm not going to give them any excuses. I do believe that the coaching failed them tremendously this year. I do believe that the front office failed them tremendously this year. But it was awesome to hear them step to the table and all point out what they did wrong as well and what they want to improve on over the summer. Asar Thompson, he discussed the fact that he knows he must become a better shooter. He wants to continue to put in the work to be that number one defender on his team. Cade Cunningham, he addressed his turnovers. He addressed his mid-range. He addressed his ball handling. He said the two things that he wants to, if there was anything to get done this season, it's ball handling and it's the turnovers. He has to figure this thing out, and he wants to. He knows that he's not a perfect player, but he also understands how much this team and the kind of where this rebuild goes is going to have a lot to do with what he is as a leader, as well as what the front office does to kind of put players around him as well. And Isaiah Stewart, and this is where it gets tough because you're in a 14-win season, and he continued to say, effectively, we didn't quit. Do you have the Isaiah Stewart audio that we could play for the people real quick?
Yep, I got you.
Because I want to be able to kind of play this because it was interesting to me, and I wanted to just understand, where was the source of their strength? Where was the source of this kind of, mentality that we're not going to quit despite what the season looked like?
What do you think was the source of some of the biggest reasons behind this team keeping their heads high despite the win totals?
I would just say, that's a good question. I would just say, I'm not sure, but we did it, It's kind of one of those things where it's like, we're not sure, but we still came in every day and fought. And I tip my hats off to my teammates for doing that. So we came in every day, we fought to, get better and dig ourselves out of whatever we're in. We didn't quit.
Hey, and you know what? And so it's interesting, man, when I hear that type of stuff, because it's 14 wins. They played scrappy. Or maybe they didn't. It was a lot of stuff that was going on where at least the players and their mindset looking ahead was to try and improve, was to try and get better. But they need help, tremendous amount of help, man. They talked about the fact that the vets, they didn't really have the vets that they were seeking. And kind of talking more to Jade and Ivy as well, these other players, their whole mindset was on what they could do to get better. Obviously, the news of the day was about the Pistons front office, but
can I say, before we get there, I just have a general question, and I don't know these guys. I don't know their personalities. I don't see them behind the scenes like you do, but hearing Cade talk, and it's just how he is. He's kind of mellow. He's low-key, he talks quiet.
Yeah.
And Stu, I know he's got some fire in him. That was kind of a quiet, delivery of that. But I'm thinking about Cade in general. Is he the vocal leader of this team, or who is the vocal leader? Who brings that vocal energy? And I don't want to take away from his leadership because you can lead in other ways, but I do think there needs to be a vocal leader if your superstar isn't that type of guy. What's that dynamic with this team, especially without veterans?
Cade to the media has always presented this more measured approach.
Yeah.
But even the new players that's come here, and they've all been asked this stuff kind of throughout the season, they all say, one of the more kind of consistent things I heard was players like Marcus Sasser to players like Simone Fontecchio all say, Cade Cunningham is our leader.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Simone Fontecchio said when he first got here, he was like, Cade Cunningham was asking me questions that I had never been asked before. As soon as he saw me, he just walked up and said, congratulations, welcome to the team. We're trying to build something. But where do you want the ball? As your point guard and as your leader, I want to make sure I can put you in the best possible position to succeed. And he also said he talked to him about defense as well. And Marcus Sasser and others, it's interesting to hear them talk about who Cade is as a leader. And after some of the games, when the press conferences would start a little late, Monty Williams would walk in and we'd be like, what's going on? And he was like, hey, look, Cade's in there right now, ripping the team a new one. And Cade came out early in the season, and he showed a little bit of his what he can be from an aspect of his personality being a little bit more fiery. He said, look, we're not good. We're a bad team. We need to accept that so that we can actually start to take the proper steps forward. So I do believe in Cade as a leader. I do believe in Cade as a vocal leader as well. When you see him on the sidelines, he's fiery. Even when he's been in street clothes, you look at him on the sideline, he's one of the first guys up to dap up his guys coming back to a timeout. He's one of the first guys up to kind of like yell at the refs for his teammates. He's one of the first guys up to go ahead and clap and say what up, though, for his teammates whenever there's a good play. I do believe in Cade as a leader of this team. I absolutely do. You had another question?
No, that was it. I was just trying to figure out the dynamic between leader and vocal leader. It sounds like he is more fiery. And it's nothing against Cade. I just when you look up to your star, not everyone can turn that, like can be so level-headed and then turn it on when he needs to. So I'm wondering if a young team who feeds off that in a positive or a negative way, and they're all young.
Yep.
Cade's young. He's figuring out how to become an even better leader. So I'm not saying in a negative way. I'm just trying to figure out, like, you see games this season at the end, there's just little effort. And I'm like, I know Cade, whether he's saying something or not, he can bring that effort, but sometimes young guys can't. And they need that vocal leadership. So that's where I was going with that.
Yeah.
They also need it up top in the front office. Bro.
Yeah, because one thing I heard them say a lot, especially Marcus Sasser and Asar Thompson, and these guys are still young, first, second, third year players, is that they're still figuring out the NBA. Mm-hmm. And that's where I don't know who this lands on more, if that's more on what the front office did or didn't do to augment the right type of players, or if that's on the coaching staff in terms of what they did or didn't do to make sure that this team was kind of coached up to play to their best ability. That, to me, both of those things in tandem, they hold the brunt of the blame for me this season. If I had to put blame, it's going to be 80% kind of split some way between the coaches and the front office. That's where I put it, man. I do believe in what these young players are going to bring to the table. Mentally, they seem strong. Mentally, I can tell you they didn't quit. Being at the practices this year, they were giving all-out effort. Seeing the games, though, I think when you get down to the end of these games, there's an aspect of what to do. There's teams in this league that are veteran savvy. There are teams in this league that know what to do at ends of games. And one thing we know in NBA, and this has been talked about for years, at the end of important games, when it becomes winning time, when it gets to the playoffs as well, there's just another gear that those veteran-laden teams can get to. And to me, I do believe that Monty Williams needs more of those veterans on the floor, just like we saw with the Phoenix Suns when they got Chris Paul.
They need Udonis Haslem, right?
They had a version of that, and his name was Taj Gibson. I mean, like for real.
They got one good game out of Wiseman. Was it Wiseman after they signed Taj Gibson?
But listen, man, this is the thing that matters the most to everybody. I know it matters to Sam as well. What is going to happen with Troy Weaver, the Pistons general manager? And before I kind of read the press conference, Flannel,
yes,
what do you believe should happen with this front office?
I would probably lean towards clean house at this point.
Overhaul.
Here's the reality. However much power Troy Weaver has, however much some behind-the-scenes folks and Tom Goris are kind of handcuffing him, the reality is that the Pistons right now they just finished off the worst season in franchise history record-wise, and this is with the first season in which Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey got a chance to play a bunch of games together. They didn't get as much time together as you would hope. Thanks, Monty Williams, for that. But that's another story for another day. And there's obviously some context to this, and a lot of it falls on the front office and the roster construction around these guys. The Pistons were awful this year. And I think the thing that disheartened me the most and still kind of has me disheartened is that when Cade Cunningham had his rookie season, obviously he had a guy like Jeremy Grant with him, so it helps him and it gives some context to it. The Pistons were a 23-win team. When Jaden Ivey was a rookie and Cade Cunningham missed the whole season due to injury, or for all intents and purposes the whole season, they were a 17-win team. And again, there was some context. Bojan played more, and as much as he was a traffic cone on defense, he was a 20-point-a-game guy, 40% three-point shooter. Alec Burks last season, a lot better than Alex Burks this season. And then you had a guy like Hamidou Diallo, a guy like Sadiq Bey being there for a lot of the season. I'm not saying Sadiq Bey was some great piece or anything, but I think the Pistons lost that trade, at least at this point, when it comes to Sadiq Bey versus Wiseman. That's what Jaden Ivey had to deal with, some of those more veteran guys, and he had a good rookie year. When you finally had them both together, the Pistons were worse. Mm-hmm. You have Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey together, finally, at last. And you bring in the highest paid coach, a coach that has taken a team to the finals, and you're worse? There's a lot of reasons for that are deeper than just Cade and Jaden Ivey and Monty Williams, but that to me is just something that I can't I can't get past, and you shouldn't get past because it would have been unfathomable to think before the year. People have to remember it would have been unfathomable.
And
yeah.
Sam, you echoing my sentiments perfectly, man. And one thing I want to know, I said it on Big D yesterday, is like, what are your expectations for this new president of basketball operations? Because like he alluded to, it's a known unknown that Troy may not be the only cook in the kitchen. So if that's the case, then what should we expect from a president of basketball ops? Will he get the same treatment? Is he going to have full autonomy over this team and the decision making, or are these powers still going to be in place that hinder the team? Like, I just don't see how this works.
Well, let me correct you there. It is a known that there are multiple cooks in the kitchen. The press release, even from the Pistons, when they hired Troy Weaver, was that Arn Tellem, who was like the vice president of the squad, as well as Ed Stefanski, who was your acting president of basketball operations, were two people that Troy was going to have to both work with and answer to. You can go back and you can look at the Detroit News, the Free Press, the M Live. You can look at Woodward Sports. We all wrote about it. We all tried to tell people this is a situation. I'm going to continue to state this over and over and over again. If you're going to fire somebody for the decisions made on this team, at least do it when he has the power.
Right.
Troy Weaver has not had the power to do what he's wanted to do. So there are deals that when you look at it closely enough, like, hey, the Sadiq Bey trade for Wiseman, I don't really like the deal. A lot of people are going to point towards Troy Weaver with that thing. When you look at kind of the in-betweens, when you read between the lines and you see, well, who are these agencies that these people are associated with, and you realize super agent Arn Tellem is at the top of this thing, it starts to make sense. Even the trade with the Wizards. You go and you look at who Muscala and Gallinari, you go and you look at the types of the agencies and the connections they have. You look at Bojan Bogdanovic. There was someone in the front office who wanted Jeremy Grant, somebody in the office who didn't want Jeremy Grant. These are the types of things that I'm talking about. And the best stretch we've seen still out of these Detroit Pistons is a 10-14 stretch that included Weaver's pick Sadiq Bey, Weaver's pick Jeremy Grant, Weaver's pick Cade Cunningham.
Yeah.
That is irrefutable.
So why would we believe this would change? Because this kind of seems at this point like a PR move to kind of shut the fan base up.
And just to piggyback this, and I didn't mean to interrupt you,
because
you're good. I want to give this guy credit because we went at it a lot during the Red Wings segment, and I want you, because it's very closely related to what KG just said. And this is from Chuck Brewer. Weaver needs to be let go or allowed to do 100% what he wants. This too many cooks in the kitchen thing needs to stop. And that's what I was when I was talking about how they're worse, how they've gotten progressively worse on the court in terms of record. If it's going to stay the way that it is, it's not working. So if they're going to do another season of too many cooks in the kitchen, what are we even doing here?
What's the point?
Yeah, what are we doing?
No, I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
I'm going to be all for empower Troy Weaver. If they go in to get a president of basketball operations, what I think they're saying, just kind of reading between the lines, is that they're going to probably reduce the types of roles or the type of decision-making power that guys like Ed Stefanski and Arn Tellem actually have in the day-to-day operations of this basketball team. And they're talking about going and getting a guy that has a basketball mind. And I'll just kind of read the press release that came to us in media. The Detroit Pistons announced today that the club plans to reorganize and bolster its basketball front office, which includes filling the role of a new head of basketball operations, reporting directly to Tom Gore. So right there, there's two things that's going to happen. It sounds like some of these cooks in the kitchen are no longer going to be in the kitchen, and they're going to add one person that's going to, and this is the next statement in this press release, that's probably going to make a lot of people upset. General Manager Troy Weaver and the basketball staff, so that's everybody underneath him, will remain in their positions and current roles while the organization assesses where adjustments are needed. So that doesn't necessarily mean that Troy Weaver will last beyond when they hire the president of basketball operations. But right now, he's going to probably be that guy that gets this team ready for the draft, especially as they approach free agency.
But if you're going to let your president of basketball operations hire the new GM, why don't you fire Troy Weaver now?
Because there's still basketball business that has to be handled. And the one thing that I will say about this, and I don't know how much perspective people do or don't have, man, playing basketball, being connected to it, being connected to pro players since college, being in the DMV, which is where Troy Weaver has done a lot of his work, I can absolutely tell you he's one of the best basketball minds as it relates to talent evaluation in the NBA. Sam Presti from OKC is not lying when he says Troy Weaver is a basketball mind.
Yeah.
I don't know how much is or isn't being kind of capped over him, and that's my thing. And that's why I agree with you all. Either let Troy work or fire him. Let him sink or swim by his own merit. But the one thing I do know from his record in college, from his record helping colleges recruit, How did Jeremy Grant get to Syracuse? Oh,
How did he
Troy
get to
Weaver.
Syracuse?
Troy Weaver.
Yeah.
How did Carmelo freaking Anthony get to Syracuse? Who was that? Who identified that talent in the DMV? Shout out to Baltimore. Who was that who identified that talent long before anybody knew who Carmelo Anthony was? And I can go down a list of players.
Yeah.
I can get on my Sam with this thing and go down a list of players that you guys will play. Be like, wow. And Sam Presti did it as well. Went down a list of players that OKC has and that OKC identified long before. But even when Troy left, there was this notion, when I get to talk to some scouts and things at the games, that they know some of the players even at OKC went after Troy Weaver was already the GM of the Pistons, came because of the work that Troy Weaver had prior done with OKC Thunder. So for me, it's just like, look, you sitting here talking about going and getting basketball minds in here. I don't know what Ed Stefanski has done to prove he's this basketball mind, but there's too much power there.
Yeah.
Arn Tellem, super agent, completely different era. I don't know what he's done in this era to prove he's a basketball mind. If there's one individual, it's Troy Weaver. If you move away from that, I do have questions about what GM is coming here to clean this mess up. I don't know. So this is a kind of a tenuous situation that I hope the Detroit Pistons, if they're going to hire a player of basketball operations, is somebody that can work with Troy Weaver, and if not, they at least have a beat or a lead on a GM that they can work closely with, kind of in synergy, and not kind of one-upping each other, undercutting each other, working against each other, kind of having this overlord type figure shadowing over the entire organization, which has absolutely stifled where this rebuild was going. It went from a complete high of, hey, look, we got some good young players too. They have not done anything to augment this team at all in the right way. He hasn't even been able to hire his own coach yet. You want to talk about if there's cooks in the kitchen? Yes, there's too many cooks in the kitchen. A GM should be able to hire the coach that he believes can coach up his talent, but instead they went and got a coach that fits the complete opposite of what Troy Weaver had been doing to build this squad.
Yep, he was the home run hire at the time, who certainly hasn't lived up to that. Yeah. I guess the one thing I will say to all this, and I know that we're way over, but this is a hot button topic, and hell, we can go to 10-10. We've done it before. It's just that obviously a lot of this season you can point to a lot of things. You can point to injury. You can point to Boyan's early injury. You can point to the fact that Monty Morris never even really played for the Pistons. Yeah. You can point to the fact that Joe Harris was a nothing of a signing. You can point to the fact that James Wiseman is basically a nothing of a player in terms of those guys. You can point to the fact that some of the guys that they traded for, which maybe that was their plan all along, like Danilo Gallinari, Mike Muscala, Shake Milton, are gone. Quentin Grimes injured. The guy that I actually really like, Simone Fontecchio, who, if we're talking about positives from this season, undisputed positives, I look at Cade and I look at Fontecchio because I also think they fit well together. Even he missed the last month of the year. But my main thing of concern, and I touched on it earlier, and maybe some people can alleviate these concerns, is that when I'm talking about guys who I 100% am all in on, I didn't mention Ivy, I didn't mention Duren, I didn't mention even Asar Thompson or Sasser or Isaiah Stewart. I just mentioned Cade. There's a lot of question marks about all of these guys. Is Jaden Ivey a good enough shooter? He had a really rough stretch to end the year. Does he fit well with Cade? When you look at Jalen Duren, given the fact that he's a limited offensive player in terms of more of like a throwback center, he has to, in order to realize his potential, be a tenacious rim-protecting post defender. Yeah. And he's shown this season that he did not really develop into one.
And stay healthy.
Absolutely. I mean, he missed 20 games. Cade even missed 20 more games. And then Asar Thompson, he's got the blood clots, which we hope for a clean bill of health. But even him, he was a great defender, probably your best perimeter defender. Yeah. He did some nice things offensively, like he was a facilitator, he could rebound and all of that. But his three-point shot is, when you have him and Duren and Ivy like on the court at the same time, which didn't happen often, that's just no shooting whatsoever.
Yeah, and I'm going to correct this notion in this narrative because, listen, Steve Yzerman, does he have autonomy, complete control, and power in that front office to do what he wants to do?
Oh, he's Steve.
That's the point. That's the difference. And I see some comments in the chat. Troy Weaver does not have that. He has to literally take, hey, I would like to do this. And there are people who hold a little bit more power above him that say, that's cute. No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. That's the difference. So we can't even say he can't build a team. You guys need to be careful about what you ask for. This is the person that I would empower over anybody else right now, because what is on the other side of this thing? grass isn't always green on the other side. I believe one of the quickest fixes for this squad is just let that man have what Joe Dumars had. Before Joe Dumars was proven, they gave him GM ability, and it was important for him to have also president of basketball operations title. Even Stan Van Gundy had that. They gave Stan Van Gundy president of basketball operations title. When they took it away from him, they gave it to Ed Stefanski. He just didn't take the title, but took all the responsibilities. Look at the history of what that man has done in this NBA. That's all that I'm saying. So if you move on from a guy like a Troy Weaver, who in my opinion is your best basketball mind in that front office, if you move on from him, and you say we're going to bring in another PBO that's just potentially going to be one of these puppets of the people above him, I don't think this thing gets better at all. I would rather take my chances with somebody who has identified some of the young talent that we have on the squad, who has identified and has connections with players. Why would Jeremy Grant leave a contending team to come to a rebuilding Detroit Pistons team? This is the type of stuff that I'm talking about, and the type of savviness that you need out of a general manager. It's just he needs to have the power, or else he's not the one actually building the team. But he's not. That's just the truth.
If you're not going to give it to him, though, set him free. And
I agree with that. I agree with that.
I think you have a perspective that is interesting, but I can also understand the perspective as, say, a fan who looks at what this team has become, at least on the court in terms of record-wise. And I can't blame the people because either they don't know or any other reason, or they're rightfully upset at some things that would say that firing Troy Weaver is the most no-brainer thing in the world. I don't blame people for that perspective, and I wouldn't even be mad at if it happened, especially if it's going to be the same nonsense that we've seen the last 4 seasons with the Tellums and Stefanski and Tom Gores and all of that. And obviously they're going to hire a new president of basketball operations. That looks like the plan. And maybe that president of basketball operations will render Troy Weaver kind of moot, or maybe they'll get rid of him. We never know. It's just, it can't continue like it has been these last few years. Either give him the power if you believe in him, if they believe in him as a talent evaluator the way you do, Kool-Aid, or set him free.
Right.
It's not just about the way I do. If you value anything with Sam Presti, if you value anything with the college landscape, if you value anything about what the players themselves would tell you, he has his own record that speaks for itself. My disappointment in people is the fact that they don't care about what the record actually is with Troy Weaver before he got here.
But they don't care about
that.
But
But they should. If you're going to enter a conversation, bro, let the facts speak for themselves.
That's the truth. But what's good of having a great basketball mind if you can't utilize it?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Give him all the power or let him go. I'm not saying to just keep him around just to keep him around. Right. What I'm saying, if he's going to be here, let that man cook. If not, just start completely over. Take the whole entire front office, punt it to the moon, and bring in a guy who works better with the general manager he'll bring in. If you're going to keep the general manager and the player of basketball operations separate, if you're going to then you got to bring in some guys that got a working synergy together. Because right now, this aspect of building the team this way, but then you're going to go and usurp that general manager's coaching search to bring in a guy that comes in right away and says, I don't know what to do with this team. Jaden Ivey, I don't know what to do. That to me is crazy. That to me is wild. It's like, it's absurd. It's absurd, bro. I have no idea what the game plan was. I have no plan. It's toxic. So that's me. Like, I'm not against people who say broom the whole thing out. But if the whole notion is keep the thing in place and just take Troy Weaver out, I'm telling you, we become an even worse basketball front office than we are right now. That's my point.
It's 100% clean house. 100%.
It just seems like a lose-lose situation, man. I don't see how they get out of this clean. I don't, especially in 1 year. I don't see it. Shout out to Doug Durkee in the chat. Said sounds like the Pistons are adding more ingredients to a really bad recipe. And that's just what it seems like.
It does. It does. I've written articles about it. I've talked about it. I'm going to continue to talk about it. They need to either clean house or give this man the power. If you bring in a PBO, it need to be somebody that he's saying, like, you know what? Bring that guy in here. Because you look at the record of the guys who are right now sitting with the power, I have no idea. We talked about this with Ed Stefanski already. This man, look at his record with the Philadelphia 76ers. He's part of the reason why these people say, you know what, we got to go to the process because you've messed things up.
Yeah.
Look at the Memphis Grizzlies. Look at the teams he's been with. I don't know what they're doing. I know if Memphis Grizzlies say, you know what, Ed, that's okay. Go do your thing. We're going to pick up Tayshaun Prince.
Yeah.
And now look at them. I still don't understand why we didn't give Tayshaun Prince an honest look. I have no idea. You want to talk about a guy who showed a basketball mind that would have worked perfectly and understands the culture of Detroit, I still to this day believe that Tayshaun Prince should have been the guy that they brought in. But Malik Rose, Tayshaun Prince, and others, when they got here, did their interviews, and turned around and walked away, you know what some of the rumblings were?
What was that?
Their front office is a mess.
Hell yeah.
That's the point that I'm trying to make. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
I believe Troy Weaver thought with the backing of Sam Presti coming here as a guy who turned down Detroit in the past before he got here, thought, you know what? I'm going to be the man. And when he got here, you're not. Arn Tellem and Ed Stefanski, they're the men. And that's the issue. Clean house. I'm with you guys on that.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I think that's a wrap on this one, man.
Yeah. We beat a dead horse, literally.
Oof. Draft is on the way.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Free agency is on the way. Dead horse, man. Oh, shout out to my guy Hooper, man. Where are we going with this, JB?
We got the all shows read.
Hey, you guys don't know it, man. Thank you guys for kicking off the day with the Woo Crew, 8 to 10 every single morning, Monday through Friday.